This is the Good Neighbor Podcast, the place where local businesses and neighbors come together. Here's your host, Mike Sedita.
Hello out there. Welcome to the Good Neighbor Podcast. My name is Mike Sedita. We are recording episode 60, and we have the pleasure of being joined by Tom Parnell. He's the partner at Gibbs and Parnell, PI attorneys here in Tampa. You can't miss him. I mean, he's got billboards and signs everywhere. So you probably know the face. You definitely know the name. Tom, thank you so much for being on the Good Neighbor Podcast with us.
Hey, thanks for having me, Mike.
Excellent. So just so you know a little bit about the Good Neighbor Podcast, essentially in 2020, when everybody was socially distancing themselves during COVID, a guy by the name of Charlie McDermott down in Southwest Florida said, hey, what can I do to get businesses that are in the community a little more in the community and still be socially distant? Thus, the Good Neighbor Podcast was born. Now, 3 years later, we have podcasts all over Tampa, Atlanta, Virginia, all over the country. And I'm lucky enough to be here in Tampa and get to talk to guys like you and find out a little bit more about what makes you tick. So, there's a ton of attorneys out there. Tell us a little bit about your firm.
Yeah, well, there are a ton of attorneys. I've been doing this. This is my 39th year practicing law. And, when I was born and raised in Tampa. So been here my whole life. Only time I went away was to go to law school in Tallahassee. But
go Knowles.
There you go, buddy. But, it's just gotten worse and worse and worse. I was driving to the airport, I don't know, a few weeks ago, and every billboard on just about on 275 between the Malfunction Junction and the airport exit is nothing but one attorney after another. I'm sitting there trying to watch Maury, to see if he's if you are the father or not. I'm enjoying my TV
and the billboards were messing up your Maury. That's the problem.
Well, no, I sit in my living room and go, my God, one after another. The other day there was 5 in a row, 5 back to back. And I thought, it just makes the business look sleazy, and nobody says anything different. I mean, if somebody asked me what's different about your law firm, well, I've been doing it for 4 decades. Okay, that's one thing. And I'll be straight with you. I mean, about the thing. There's so much misinformation. They all say the same thing. Well, we don't get paid unless you get paid, and we're going to get.
And then they throw out their numbers. They throw out, we've recovered X amount in blah 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 blah. I mean, I get it.
A man who hurt his ankle got $800,000. Let me tell you something. If they got $800,000, the ankle's gone. Okay,
it's that amputated. By hurt, they meant it got caught in a shredder and it's completely gone. Yeah, it's a stump.
And the truth is that just about every law firm, if you've got any experience at all, you can do the same thing that, we won't mention the man that's always on TV and everywhere, all over. Yeah. I just got back from LA. And he's out there on a billboard for God's sake.
Everywhere.
Anyway, it makes it sound like he's the only one that can afford to back a case. Listen, the majority of cases in this business are small cases. They're fender benders. There's not a lot of injury. Most policies, if they have bodily injury coverage, which you don't have to have in Florida, believe it or not, is $10,000. And so it doesn't take a brain surgeon to get $10,000 on an auto accident. The difference is, if I don't do much work, and I can tell you this truthfully, I had to prove it to the Florida bar to put it in an ad before. I don't take more than my client. So if the medical bill, if the balance of medical bills, lost wages, whatever, ends up choking up enough of that money to where my attorney fee is larger than their net recovery, I cut my fee. And I've been doing it for decades. And I've asked, tell me one other attorney that does that. I don't know of any. I've heard the horror stories. I started doing it because years ago, this lady came into my office and she was telling me about how her other case, the lawyers and the doctors got all the money. You hear that from time to time.
Right.
She showed me the closing statement. I mean, the lawyer got like $15,000 as a fee. She took under $1,000 home, and I thought, that's just absolutely sickening. So from that point on, I said, I'll never do it, and I don't do it.
You know what, Tom? In every profession, no matter what the profession is, I mean, listen, we could get a whole philosophical discussion and even say as every profession, including priesthood, there's bad apples in every single genre of work that there is out there. And there are guys out there. Unfortunately, that's part of the reason why I like to do this with someone like you, is because you've been doing it forever. And again, I was joking in the beginning, but you are out there. People know who you are. There are good guys that do this. And then there are just guys that truly fit kind of that, and I hate to use the term, ambulance chaser mode. And it gives the guys who do a good job a stigma that they now have to overcome to differentiate themselves. That's got to be the hardest thing, I would think, for you. I mean, reputation and name goes a long way, but that's one of the things that's got to be difficult, no?
Oh, are you kidding me? You know, you go to a party or you're at a public event where you're meeting people and they say, "So, what do you do for a living?" And I'm an attorney. "Oh, really? What kind?" I swear to you, I pause because I don't want to get into this whole thing.
You say a state attorney.
It cheapens the profession and it makes me feel sleazy sometimes.
Right.
I'm not gonna lie to you. Sometimes I'll blow it off and just say, "I'm a civil attorney," and just leave it at that, and do civil litigation, because we've got such a bad name because of all these advertising idiots, and they blow into town. You know, a lot of these guys don't even have an office in Tampa, or they'll open up a satellite office, but they're really based out of Jacksonville, Miami, or even out of state, and they'll come to Tampa. It's a hotbed. It's one of the fastest growing cities in America. You know, they're renovating the airport. If you heard Tampa International, they're adding like 40 more gates because of the population explosion in this area. So the lawyers have come down here like a feeding frenzy. You know, and so that's why you've got such an opportunity to get the wrong lawyer. You know what I tell people? Yes, I've got billboards, and yes, I've got ads online, and I've got some other marketing things. It's something you have to do to keep up and to keep the business, right? But I mostly work my client base. I've got over 20,000 client base that I send out newsletters to like 4 times a year, just to remind them we're here. If they have any questions about anything else, even if I don't handle that kind of thing, I'll answer the questions. I'll get them to the right attorney if that's what they want, if they need me to. So I've been doing that for years.
That's also keeping you top of mind with them. So like you send that newsletter out, and now when their friend comes to them a couple days later and says, "Oh my God, I was in XYZ store and I tripped and my knee is killing me, blah, 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 blah." And that just kind of reinforces, oh gosh, you got to call Gibbs and Parnell. Like it keeps you in their brain stratosphere, so they know that they have a person in their corner. That's the beauty of doing that. I get that.
Exactly. And I can tell you that probably 80% of our clientele at any one time is either a repeat customer, they've had an accident before, or they were referred by a former client. You know, so you have to do some of the advertising. But here's what I tell people. I don't care what you're doing, what you're trying to find, a doctor, a dentist, a lawyer, whatever. You know, ask somebody that you trust. Ask your loved ones, your family. Don't go by an ad or a catchy stinking phone number.
Or Google reviews.
You know, what?
Or Google reviews. I have a friend that literally, Tom, they live their life by Google reviews. Now, listen, Google is great. There's a lot of cool stuff you can get by that. But if I'm in an accident, I mean, look, if I want to find a Thai restaurant, maybe I'll Google review it and figure out which one fits the best out of the mix.
Right.
But if it's a life-changing type thing, but I have this one friend that everything they did, auto body shop, Google reviews, that could be 40 people who are friends of the person that owns that shop going in and putting those 40 reviews. I mean, there's so many ways to manipulate the system. Nothing beats that tangible connection to a previous customer or a tangible connection to someone that you're interacting with for the first time.
Oh, they got companies now that'll go and wipe bad reviews off for you. They figured out how to do it. You pay them
they write a boatload of good ones to push the bad ones down. I mean,
exactly.
So let me ask you this: 40 years in Tampa, you kind of fed into one of the questions I was going to ask you. Since 2020, and probably a little bit before that, but really COVID was the thing. So California, Connecticut, New York, and New Jersey, all those areas, you just saw a mad rush. Like you would think it was the Yukon gold rush, the number of people that came here. And what you're saying is all of those attorneys seeing that it was a city that was just burning hot with people coming in are now just kind of influxing to try to grab what they can from clientele?
Yeah, that's my opinion, and other people's too. I don't know when COVID hit and people stopped driving. Obviously, that cut into my business our business significantly, and it really hasn't rebounded the way it was pre-COVID. I think there's still a lot of people staying home or working from home, you know, but the numbers have declined all over the state, not just here. And so I think that's one reason, though. Also, they're branching out in different cities because they're not getting the case numbers they were getting pre-COVID.
You know, it is true. I mean, you bring up a really good point. I mean, there's still traffic. Obviously, you can't drive through 275 at 5 o'clock, you know, without seeing that. But a lot of businesses realized, hey, look, I could have people work from home. I don't need to have a brick and mortar store anymore. So those spaces were now being filled, and it's less traffic on the road, less car accidents, less opportunities for them to need your services. So yeah, that definitely, I could see how that would play into the numbers dipping. From your standpoint, I mean, growing up here, born and raised here, number one, did you get a lot of crap for going to Florida State as opposed to going to Florida? And number two, were you, as a kid, were you always the guy with your crowd of buddies that would like bust everybody's chops and try to be in, like, argue with them over not, whatever it was? Like, were you the guy that did that, or did you just kind of gravitate towards this through college?
If you mean developing the skills that would lead me into law, or that would work for me in the practice of law, yes, I was a blabbermouth. I was, my father used to say, not one more word, don't say one. And I couldn't stand it. I get my butt big. Yeah. But no, yeah, I was the one always talking, always right. As far as Florida State goes, now I was a Seminole fan long before. I just couldn't stand orange and blue. But listen, if you're in an accident out there and you're a Gator, I've got Gators working for me.
We'll take you. Yeah, if no matter blue and orange, we'll still take you if you have some issues with your car.
That's right. I'll represent anybody. I don't care where you went to school.
So then let me ask you this. I mean, we talked a little bit about some of the misconceptions about being an attorney. Some of the kind of the negative connotation that goes with it. But for you personally, you have other outlets that you do. What are some of the other things besides litigating and settling lawsuits and doing that for your clientele? What do you like to do when you're outside the office?
Well, I mean, I love playing golf, and so I do.
What do you shoot?
Do a lot of that. And my 2 years of my granddaughter, my first grandchild, was born 2 years ago. So my daughter lives in Tahoe, so I fly out there 3 or 4 times a year to watch my granddaughter grow up. But also about 2012, so a little over 10 years ago, I started. I mean, I've been a writer my whole life, but I looked at my first screenplay, and I thought, I tried to write a book, and I don't even have patience to read a book, much less write one. But I read a script, and I thought, man, this is just talking. I can do this. And so I wrote my first script, and then I met my business partner, Mark Savage, in LA, and I flew out there. I'm also an actor. So I acted in a movie of his, and we struck a partnership, and we've written about 14 scripts now. I got four films now. Painkiller was the last one released in 2020. It's on Amazon. Well, you can just IMDb my name and you'll see the movies.
That's what I was going to say. You have an IMDb profile.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So, it's really an expensive hobby. I mean, I'm not looking to get an Oscar. I'm certainly not looking to get rich making it, but I enjoy the process. I just came back. I was in LA for 8 days. We filmed a movie called 12 to Midnight. Yeah, I helped write that one. Anyway, we had to fly out. We did a lot of the shoot in LA, but then we had to go to Pennsylvania because we needed a coal mine. So we filmed a bunch of it in a coal mine and in old rail cars. So we did it for venue, but that was another 8 or 9 days in Pennsylvania, right outside of Philly. So it's just fun. I mean, I really enjoy the process.
So now, all of your projects, are they with Mark? Like, he's kind of like your partner in that whole venue? Is he does all that stuff with you?
Yeah, well, he's the director.
Okay.
And he co-writes the scripts with me. But I'm an executive producer, and I do most of the writing, and I act. He's not an actor. I acted in all of my own, but I've also been acting in other people's movies. I just got offered a role in Oregon in September, playing kind of a redneck grandfather, shotgun toting grandfather. So I'm reading the script now. I think I'm going to take the role, but it's just fun. It's just fun.
How are you getting these scripts? I mean, do you have a casting agent and that stuff?
Well, I mean, I know so many people now in the industry.
They just kind of send them to you.
Yeah, that's it. I don't have an agent. Don't want an agent. Most of the time I don't even charge them to be in the movie. So
right.
They're not. So that opens up a lot of doors.
Yeah, I would think. Right, doing it as part of your hobby, that would definitely open up some doors. Mm-hmm. So what do you shoot in golf? Are you a scratch golfer, or you just kind of beat the bushes like a lot of other people?
Yeah, the only scratching I do is my butt. No,
yeah.
No, it's funny though. I finally got down where I had a decent swing once I got in my mid 50s. To all my life I was a slicer, and so no, I'm about a 10 handicap.
Trying to overpower it. I mean, that's my problem. I played baseball growing up, and my swing was always that kind of baseballish swing. Mm-hmm. When I lived in Atlanta, when I tell you, like, I should have come with a warning label to everybody that was on the right side of any kind of drive off the tee box. I killed so many houses, and it's not like here where there's lanais with screen porches. You're literally drilling into people's sides of their house. So, yeah, I'm terrible at that part of it.
But when you get older, and your body's slowing down, which it is, so the swing slowed down. Obviously, it's amazing how much straighter the ball went.
I'm not that far behind you. I mean, I shaved recently to avoid some of the gray hair, but I'm not that far behind. I'm pushing. I just turned 51, but now that you bring that up, so today's your birthday. So what are we celebrating today?
You mean the year?
Yeah.
I turned 65 today.
Oh my God, man, you look fantastic. I mean, this is audio, but we can repurpose the video. Just for the fact of the matter is 65, you look great. You got less gray hair in your beard than I do. So you're doing something right.
Yeah, it's called Just for Men, Mike.
Oh, all right, perfect. Even better. Clyde Frazier got to you. He got you to jump into it. So, as we start to talk about this, your background is pretty diverse. How do you get into, like, when you're doing movie stuff, like, I'm assuming you don't do a lot of, like, you don't hire an attorney to do contracts, or do you go out and hire a contract attorney, or you're so good at reading contracts and doing that stuff that you don't have somebody do any of that, or is that even required? And then how do you get into the writing side of it? Were you always, as a kid, imagination? Was that kind of a thing?
Yeah, I mean, I published a book of poetry too. I know how that sounds, but I really did. I've just written all my life, but I wanted to try my hand at acting, so I started taking some acting classes, and that's how I got into that. So I really enjoyed the acting, and then when I was reading scripts to be in part of the movie, I thought, I got a lot of ideas, and we just started writing. I didn't realize that I could be good at this, and I don't mean for me to say that, but other people have said that, and I didn't know I had a talent for it. I just started doing it, and once you did it, just spawns other ideas, and a creative force in me just surfaced. I didn't know it was down there.
So let me ask you this. It's talking about movies in general now. Like, do you go to the movies? Do you like the movies? Do you see stuff that's out there? Do you have opinions about it as you're watching it? Or are you just kind of like, I like doing it, but I'm not really into watching it?
Oh, I'm a fanatic watching it. And I'll tell you, it's ruined so much. My ability to sit and watch a movie that's poorly written has just, my family's like, stop saying stuff. Like, I'm like, look at that. That makes no sense.
Right.
Well, it's like, just shut up and enjoy the movie. And so the past film we just did, I was actually given the title of continuity supervisor, because I'm doing it anyway. I mean, if I see something, I'm like, wait a minute, she had
holes in it,
or that's not what she was wearing in the last scene, or whatever.
Right.
And I do it all the time. So they said, fine, you're in charge. And so you got to be there for every single scene, which I usually am anyway. But, because the continuity just drives me crazy.
Right.
I see it in major motion pictures too. It's like, really? You spent all this money on this movie and you couldn't figure that out?
Well, it's funny you say that. Like, so for me, I'm a big movie guy. Like, I like the experience of still going to the movies. So, and I do also, listen, I like the whole superhero genre. I get into it for an escape. But I'll tell you, I went to see Oppenheimer the other day, and it's probably one of the better movies I've seen. Now, it's long. It's Christopher Nolan, so it's ridiculously long. But it was done so well. It was so enjoyable. But there was stuff like that. Like, there was scenes where he's doing speeches after we dropped the bomb, and there's flags in the background, and there 50 stars on the flag, and this is before 1952, so there's that type of continuity stuff. So that's the kind of stuff that would drive you crazy, I'm assuming.
Well, yeah, but you just have to talk to yourself. Yeah, say, listen, just leave it alone. You got to see Oppenheimer. Well, Saturday night, I got drugged to Barbie by a girl I'm seeing. And she's dressed all in pink, and we're going to see Barbie. Oh,
you weren't dressed in pink.
No, I didn't. I don't have anything pink. But halfway through the movie, even she leans over and she goes, "Are you enjoying this?" And I said, "I don't even know what's going on."
Right.
She goes, "You want to leave?" I'm like, "Only if you do." And so she did. So we left. And it's
as you were standing up, grabbing your coat, you're like, "Only if you do."
Yeah. But the theater was packed. It's getting great reviews, but it just wasn't my thing.
Do it for you.
Oppenheimer was playing right next door. I could have seen Oppenheimer, but whatever.
It's funny. When I lived in Georgia, there was a movie theater not far from where I lived. And like on a rainy day in Georgia, we would go to like a matinee and get out of the matinee and just see what was playing, like starting as we were getting ready to leave, and go see a double feature. And it's the only way movies can be affordable. You can go see for $20. Now you get to go see two movies. But I haven't done that in a while, because And now at 51, I can barely sit through a Christopher Nolan movie. Has to be for me not to have to get up and use the restroom in the theater with these new reclining seats and not fall asleep and not have to go use the restroom for 3+ hours. Yeah. The movie's got to be engaging. So it was really good. I think you would enjoy it. And I like historical stuff. Even if there's liberties that are being taken with some of it, I definitely like the historical aspect of it.
Well, I was fixing to say, of course, you know how it ends. So
yeah,
a surprise.
Well, you know,
I heard it was fantastic.
It was good. You know what it is? It's funny. I said to a buddy of mine after seeing it, there's another movie out there with Benedict Cumberbatch called The Imitation Game. And in that particular movie, they talk about breaking the Enigma code in World War II with the Germans and how they did all this behind. That. Great movie. And I just kept thinking to myself, like, where are these? Now, maybe it's Elon Musk and maybe it's Jeff Bezos. Maybe these are our modern day guys like Oppenheimer who can create this history-breaking stuff, or God, I can't think of his name off the top of my head. Charles Turning, who was in that other movie. Like, these are genius men that are just saving millions and millions of lives. Where are those people in 2023? I don't know. I'm almost thinking maybe there's some of the aliens that they were talking about on TV last night that have been hiding among us all these years that we didn't know existed.
The lizard people. Well, I mean, they said that's the greatest generation, and for a reason. It's just, I don't think it'll ever be repeated. I don't know all the reasons why, and wouldn't want to theorize, but you're right. There's a scene in a new called Newsroom. Jeff Daniels. Did you ever?
Yeah, it's great.
You remember the Northwestern speech he gave?
Yeah, why America's not the greatest country in the world.
I try to get everybody that I know, and young people too, to listen. That's only like 6 minutes long, and just watch that and see where are they? Where have they gone? Yeah,
it's kind of like that whole speech, and that's the funny thing is that is literally like the opening scene of the entire show, and it almost sets the tone for everything. But that is kind of a cold bucket of water being thrown on a whole generation of kids who, again, now I sound like the old man, get off my lawn, that just don't have any conceptual understanding of what that greatest generation actually did, like literally saving the world from tyranny.
Yep.
That just, and now we have guys running all over the place, whether it's Venezuela, North Korea, Iran, doing things that they're just kind of, or Russia. We have all these different, not to get into a deep political discussion, but we have tyrants all over the world, and there's just nobody really stepping up to kind of work through any of that. So at least it seems that way. But we could probably spend a whole half hour just on that alone.
Well, my father said to me once, he said, "Son," he said, "I think the whole world's gone crazy except me and you, and I ain't real sure about you."
We're still up in the air on you. So, Tom, let me ask you this as we start to wrap this up a little bit. I think I have my opinion of this answer, but I'll let you kind of answer it. What is the one differentiating thing? If I'm hurt, if I'm injured, and I need to contact an attorney, besides the fact that you will not take more than your plaintiff that you're working with, what's one of the other things that people need to know why they need to come to Gibbs and Parnell?
Well, I like to think that it's because I'm honest with them. I mean, if they tell me they're not that hurt, I'm going to tell them the truth. If you don't feel like for instance, you get down the road, they told you they're hurt, they make a recovery, there's a small policy. Well, if I'd known that's all there was, I wouldn't have treated. Well, that's no reason to treat for an accident. Your health and recovery is more important than any dollar. There's not enough money to hurt. You know that. You've had pain and issues like we all have.
Right.
So tell them, if you're not, then don't. I'll help you with a PD. I'll do it for nothing. We don't charge a fee for that anyway, and we help them with the property damage. And they got to get the car fixed. They can't give us a third of it. They're not going to get the car fixed.
Right.
The point is, I'll be honest with you and tell you. And we certainly have the wherewithal financially to back any case, not just who. Like he's the only one who's got money.
Right.
But and do it for the health reasons. The lady came to see me. Her husband was killed. This is just an example of what I do as well. Some lady ran a stop sign and killed him. There was only $100,000 policy. As soon as we did the first letter, the insurance company, sends $100,000. Now I could have taken $33,333 out of that and lawfully because I had a contract, but I couldn't do it. And so I hired a firm down the road here that does estate work, because you have to open up an estate for a death. And he charged like $3,000, and I gave the lady the whole check, because it just doesn't make any sense. Why in the world am I going to take money out of there? She needs it, her husband's gone, things like that. It's just, the reason that I've been able to survive and still flourish with so many lawyers is because I've tried to treat people right over the years. That's why I've got that client base. That's why I send out the postcards reminding them and that we're still here, because they're my primary source of business, and they wouldn't be that way if they weren't happy.
Right.
That's what I try to do.
So, the big thing is, if you're listening to this podcast, there are hundreds, probably in the 500s of attorneys. Half of them are on billboards on 275 or 54, through Tampa and down and around. The differentiator is, listen, Tom's going to tell you the truth. If you're coming in his office and you're not legitimately hurt where you have something going on, he's going to be straight with you and say, look, this isn't a case that we can go after just because of the circumstance. But if you are, he's gonna fight for you. He's gonna fight for your health and your well-being, and do it the right way at Gibbs and Parnell. Tom, what's the best way to get a hold of your office? Is it the website, the phone number? How do they get you easiest?
Yeah, website's gibbsandparnell.com. That's A-N-D, not an ampersand. And the number's 813-975-4444.
Tom, thank you so much for being on the Good Neighbor podcast. If you're listening to this, 813-975-4444. Call Gibbs and Parnell. You'll get a hold of probably one of Tom's associates, but he will make sure you're in good hands. Tom, thanks so much for being on.
All right, see you at the movies.
All right, see you at the movies. Go see Oppenheimer.
Thanks for listening to the Good Neighbor Podcast Passcode. To nominate your favorite local businesses to be featured on the show, go to gnppasco.com. That's gnppasco.com, or call 813-922-3610.